It would not be an understatement to say that Celtic's appointment of Greek-Australian manager Ange Postecoglou in June 2021 raised more than a few eyebrows at the time.
The Celtic have applied for exemption with UEFA for Yokohama Marinos boss Postecoglou to manage in Europe. He does not hold the required UEFA Pro license. This has got to be a wind-up. No.
Fast forward to a year and a half later, and I'm sure that most Celtic fans wouldn't trade him for any manager, not even Eddie Howe. Postecoglou has implemented many changes at the club, but some of the most striking have been in the area of player recruitment. In this video, I'm going to look at some of the ways the transfer policy has changed at Celtic under Big Ange. The penny-pinching frugality of the Celtic board has been the subject of much scorn and derision. From 2011 to 2017, Celtic spent an average of €9 million a season, only spending over €10 million in 2013, 2015 and 2017. The most they spent on a single player in that period was the €7 million forked out for Jozo Simunovic, with the majority of permanent transfer fees hovering around the €2 million mark. This trend did appear to be changing in the couple of years before Postecoglou's arrival, as the club spent a total of €30 million. This included the club record signing of French striker Odsonne Edouard from PSG and the large outlay of €8 million for another Frenchman, Toulouse defender Christopher Jullien. Although the money men appeared to be showing more of a willingness to splash the cash, the way in which they have backed Big Ange since he took the reins has been nothing short of remarkable and unprecedented. Ange has had 4 transfer windows with the Scottish champions, and a total of €56 million has been splurged. Wherever their hand has been forced a little due to the sorry state which the playing squad was in due to key departures and years of mismanagement, the fact remains that in the past they had shown themselves willing to shop in the bargain bin and rely on stopgap loan signings to paper over the cracks. This has all changed under Ange, and no one can deny that his project and vision has received the full financial backing of those in charge at Parkhead. Celtic have brought in a lot of duds over the years. Mohamed Bangura, Amido Balde, Dirk Borger, Timo Pukki, Stefan Sepovic, Nader Shifchi, Scott Allen, Logan Bailey, Sadie Yanko, Abui Kouassi, Marvin Comper and Christian Gamboa have all passed through the doors at Celtic without making much of an impact, if any at all. In more recent times, Greek stopper Vasilis Barkas and Swiss striker, I put the terms in inverted commas, Albion Anieti have represented high profile and expensive failures. The former apparently failed to settle in Scotland and had his confidence rocked by a succession of howlers. The latter started off strong but failed to show the killer instinct which he did when playing for Basel, and ultimately was nowhere near the standard required to be a first choice Celtic striker, or even a bench option, let's be frank. Enter the age of Ange. Of the 21 permanent first team players he has signed, I would only categorise 2 of them as out and out failures. James McCarthy always seems like a weird signing to me, and I'm sceptical whether Postecoglou even wanted to bring him in, and he was tied up on a 4-year deal. He looks slow and laboured in possession, his passing is poor, and he rarely makes a matchday squad even when he is fit. Honestly, this strikes me as a relic of the old philosophy and the last signing of the old guard. Yusuke Ideguchi has been terribly unlucky with injuries since arrival, and this has severely hampered his progress. Truth be told, I haven't seen him play enough to even give an assessment on his footballing ability. This is one that just didn't work out for reasons beyond everyone's control. I would say that the jury is still out on Liam Scales and Alejandro Bernabei, with the latter showing real quality in the final third at times and setting up some great goals with killer balls. But he does appear to be a bit rash, and it seems that Ange doesn't quite trust him yet. He is, however, only 22, and I am of the firm belief that he will come good given time. Liam Scales is currently on loan at Aberdeen, and perhaps he will turn out to be not of the required standard to nail down a place at Celtic Park. Out with those anomalies, Postecoglou has shown himself to be something of a genius in the transfer market, as the rest of his acquisitions have gone on to make a massive impact. Kyogo Furuhashi arrived for €4.5 million and scored a hat-trick on his Premier League debut, and hasn't looked back since, with his phenomenal scoring form not letting up one bit, as he's netted 40 times in 62 appearances across all competitions, and is the league's current top scorer and the real talisman for the boys. Rio Hatate is for me the most exciting player in the country at the moment, and is someone I find a pure joy to watch, a real midfield orchestrator, and he helps Celtic to control games. Jota is the type of dynamic, skillful, fearless, unpredictable wing player that Celtic have been crying out for years now. He's the guy who gets crowds out of their seats and is often the most dangerous player on the park. Aaron Moy, Cameron Kevin Carter-Vickers, Joe Hart, Josip Juranovic, Yorgos Giakoumakis, Dyson Maeda. The list of players the gaffer has brought in who have elevated this team is seemingly endless. Whether this is due to his knowledge of untapped markets like those in Korea and Japan, or simply that he has a clear vision and profile of the type of player he wants to sign for any given position, and make sure the scouting and recruitment team draw up a list of the right targets for him, I'm not entirely sure. But by God it's working, and the current trust among supporters for new signings they don't know much about is through the roof, and that's all because Postecoglou has proven himself to be a man who can really spot a player. For many years at Celtic, the main transfer plan and business model seemed to be to buy promising youngsters for rock-bottom prices, often taking advantage of cross-border development rules to steal players away from clubs in England for next to nothing, play them, improve them, and sell them on for a profit. And, to be fair, they were extremely good at this and had a few hits in this regard. Victor Wanyama, Virgil van Dijk, and Fraser Forster arrived for 1.1, 2.7 and 2.5 million euros respectively. All three were sold to Southampton for a combined total of 42.7 million, meaning the club raked in a massive profit of 36 mil with these deals alone. One of the major success stories of the Rodgers era was one Moussa Dembele. The 20-year-old French striker was nabbed from Fulham for free in 2016 and quickly stole the hearts of the fans. You know, scoring perfect hat-tricks and dramatic late winners against eternal rivals Rangers will do that for you in the East End of Glasgow. Goals against Man City in the Champions League alerted Europe's top clubs that this boy was a player. And 2 years after he arrived, Dembele was sold to sleeping French giants Lyon for a reported £20 million. Christopher Ayer was brought in from IK Start for around £500,000 also in 2016. After making 176 appearances, being instrumental in securing the treble and becoming a fan favourite, he was sold to Brentford in summer 2021 for a reported £15 million-ish. All in all, great business from the club. They got 4 solid seasons from an exciting young defender and bagged a tidy profit in the process. Jeremy Frimpong cost the club just £300k from Man City and made an instant impact at right back. In a troubled period where few players covered themselves in glory, Frimpong stood out as one of the few bright lights of the team, winning the hearts of supporters with his industrious and creative displays and always playing with a massive smile plastered on his face. After only a season and a half at the club, he was sold to Bayer Leverkusen for 11 million euros. Now, this policy, of course, hasn't been totally abandoned under Ange, and he has brought in several young talents who could go on to command a huge transfer fee. However, there has been a clear shift towards buying ready-made players who are in or entering their prime footballing years, have tons of experience and are ready to make an instant impact on the pitch. Karl Starfelt, Josip Juranovic, Yorgos Giakoumakis and Kyogo were all 26 when they joined, and Tomoki Iwata, who is a new signing this January, is 25. These are players who are ready to come in and do a job right away. They all had a wealth of experience and already knew their craft. Some tweaks to fit the manager's system were all that was required. So going forward, I believe that we will continue to see a mixing of these two strategies. Only 3 current first-team Celtic players have been signed from other Scottish clubs: David Turnbull, Greg Taylor and Benjamin Siegrist, with the latter having been brought in by Postecoglou himself. And it does indeed seem like the Aussie would rather bring in talent from further afield than shop on Scottish shores. This can be evidenced by 3 recent signings. Alejandro Bernabei was brought in as a much-needed squad depth option at left-back to provide cover and competition for Greg Taylor, as this proved to be a problem position for Ange during his first season when his first-choice left-back was injured. The left back cost 4.45 million euros from Lanús and is Celtic's first ever Argentine player. However, during the same transfer window, Scottish left back Josh Doig was available from Hibs. Across 78 appearances for the Easter Road outfit, Doig impressed and emerged as an exciting young talent. He was snapped up and brought to Serie A by Verona for 3.6 million euros, almost a million less than Bernabei cost, and he is having a rather good debut season for his new club, scoring 2 goals and laying on 4 in 13 appearances. Yuki Kobayashi arrived this January for an undisclosed fee from Vissel Kobe. A naturally left-sided central defender, Kobayashi again is a reliable cover option for the boys and gives us something we've not had for a long time: a lefty in central defence. In the same window, long-term Celtic-linked defender Ryan Porteous sealed a move to the English Championship with Watford for just 500k. Granted, he is not left-footed, but he's another young homegrown talent who surely would have been a more than decent squad option. Lastly, 21-year-old Korean forward Yongyu-Oh was brought in from Suwon Blue Wings for €2.8 million as a direct replacement for Giakoumakis during the January window. Again, at the same time, Hibs forward Kevin Nisbet was available for a little bit less than Oh, and he actually rejected a contract offer from Millwall after a bid had been accepted. Both players are tall and powerful forwards with a real eye for goal, but again, Postecoglou preferred the foreign option. Now there is nothing exactly wrong with this, provided that young homegrown talent from the academy continue to feature for the first team, as it is important for any team to have representatives from their home nation, something which Postecoglou said himself on arrival, not just for the connection that they have with the club, but for the UEFA registration requirements in continental competitions. One of the most significant and welcome changes over the past 4 windows is how organised, quick, effective and planned out they have been, with a total of 6 players signed in the last 2 January transfer markets before the window had even opened, showing just how well Ange has everything orchestrated and thought out. This is in stark contrast to the years before he turned up, when Celtic were woefully inadequate in their recruitment, often reacting very slowly to deal with problem areas and bringing in substandard players whenever they did get their acts together. This can be seen by the team Ange had to field for his first game in charge for a vital Champions League qualifier against Midtjylland, with the young and untested academy partnership of Dane Murray and Stephen Welsh had to be relied on in the heart of defence. This is something that Celtic fans have become used to, with Callum McGregor being played at left back in some of these fixtures in the past. Ange obviously told himself that a similar thing would never again happen to him, and he has managed to solve and strengthen long troubled areas of the team. Carter Vickers and Carl Starfelt were brought in to form an eventually solid partnership in central defence. Despite what Brendan Rodgers might have said, the flanks have been an issue for a long time. Well, no longer, as Celtic are fully stacked in that department, with Leo Labada, Jota, Maida and Haksabanovic all representing quality options out wide. Similarly, goalkeeping has been a disaster area, and one of Ange's first jobs was to revive the faltering career of Joe Hart, who has been immense between the sticks. Midfield was another area where we lacked quality options to cover for any injuries or allow for squad rotation. Now, midfield is arguably our strongest area, as Rio Hatate, Aaron Moy, Matt O'Reilly and Tamaki Iwata have all been brought in to add quality and depth to the position. Similarly, when it comes to loans, Ange obviously has a clear vision there. In the past, some desperate loan dealings were done to fill some key holes in the team. Shane Duffy, John Joe Kenny, Diego Laxalt and Moritz Bauer stand out as some recent howlers. Now Ange seems to want to bring in loans only if there's an option to buy. He gets young players who he believes can make a difference, and when and if they do, the club has the first option on them. And if they don't make the grade, he's equally quick to offload them, in the case of Moritz Jens and Oliver Abdelgaard. For a long time, Celtic seemed unwilling to accept that some of their biggest and most loved stars were going to move on, kept them long after they should have, and were caught short once they inevitably did depart. Kieran Tierney, Odsonne Edouard and Christopher Ayer are good examples of this. Again, Ange has shown that he's the exact opposite. When it became clear that Juranovic saw his future away from Parkhead, the club welcomed reasonable offers and brought in his replacement before the Croatian had even left. A similar situation has just unfolded with Giakoumakis. As the man himself put it recently, the club must be aggressive, not reactive in the transfer market.